Supermarine Spitfire MK.II, one of the most iconic planes ever. And today I'm going to build this Revell kit in 1/48 scale. When I was a young boy, I always admired these Revell kits in toy store, asking my mama to get me one just to hear, "No son, we have this plane at home." Well, now I'm a big boy and nothing is stopping me from giving it a go. There are many YouTubers that will demonstrate an extreme expertise, steady hands and insane techniques, but not me. I will invite you on the journey of complete beginner who is learning on the go. But spoiler alert, although there will be many hopefully entertaining mistakes, it will get decent fairly soon. So sit back, relax, subscribe and enjoy the build. As you can see, I started by obviously opening the kit to see what's in it. Spitfire from Revell only has 4 plastic sprues, total of 34 parts. It has a simple instructions manual and decals sheet for one livery, which should be perfect for a beginner. Now, unfortunately, one of the wings seems to have an embossed trademark on it. That is really not ideal and it will definitely need some sanding down. Looking at the instruction manual, it requires us to build the cockpit first, and it is going to require some painting, so I guess that is the best place to start, with those small cockpit details. Being a complete scale modeling virgin, I'm trying various tools to remove cockpit pieces out of the sprue. Although I do have some specialized cutters, scalpel knife seems to be easiest to work with at this stage, and I'm going to switch to it in a moment. And here I am trying another type of cutters, so let's get ready for takeoff. 3, 2, 1, and the seat is gone. And this cockpit floor part is the last one I decided to remove from the sprue. The rest, those really small pieces like rudder pedals or the yoke, I actually decided to leave on a sprue for easier painting. Now it is time to start cleaning those pieces from excess plastic, so they actually fit together quite well and we can paint them properly. And for this project, I purchased several sanding solutions, like this file you see on the screen. In the moment, that file is going to change into a sanding stick with various grids. 3, 2, 1, here we go. There's the sanding stick. Now back to being a file. The magic of editing, right? I also got a couple of sanding papers of various grids, so it is really easy to clean those parts. Then I decided to remove other large pieces from the sprue, mainly the fuselage, which will be painted from the inside with interior color. I checked whether both sides fit together, and although they didn't fit together, I'm sure once I clear the excess plastic, the fit will improve. The inside part of wings will also need the interior green color, as it will serve as a cockpit floor, So I went ahead and prepared them too. Now I'm going to use my thrust descending stick to remove the trademark that was embossed on the underside of the wing. I really didn't like the trademark there, and it would definitely show after painting, so this was a necessary step and one of the gripes that I do have with this scale kit. And it is finally time to start painting. Revell does not offer a needed shade of interior green, therefore I will need to mix it together. I bought their enamel paints, and after stirring them well, I mixed 2 parts green with 1 part yellow, and then I tinned them with some color thinner that I also got from Revell. When doing research for this project, I noticed lots of people are using airbrush for painting. I decided to go completely bigger way and only invest in some brushes instead of airbrush, which I'm going to do later, probably for the second video. You'll see, don't want to spoil it. But for that, I definitely got really thin mix of paints, and this will definitely need some more coats. After about 3 or 4 layers of this color, the interior finally starts looking like it has an even coating of the color, even though it starts budding the details, as you can see on the screen. Although, in terms of this Revell kit, there are not so many details, right? But we're going to fix that a little bit later on. It's time to finalize painting of all the interior pieces, as you can see, even the small ones, which were pain to do, but hey, you know, with some tweezers or tweezer action, it got fixed quite well. Then I realized I was so eager to start painting, I completely forgot to clean those large parts that I cut out later on, so it was about time to do that now before we glue everything together. I also removed clear cockpit glass pieces out of the sprue because the canopy needed some painting too. I also purchased some masking tape to mask the canopy, as I knew we were going to be painting it, and while it wasn't the easiest task, I think I did quite good job with that. But for the next time I will definitely invest some aftermarket masks to make the job a little bit easier. The Spitfire wasn't that difficult, but I'm sure that there will be kit where properly masking it on your own is going to be just a pain. I did paint the interior green on the outside of the canopy as per the instruction manual, and this was a mistake. But in the words of Classic, there are no mistakes, just happy accidents, and this will actually pay off a little bit later on. While instructions manual calls for black propeller blades, you can see on the front that there are actually yellow safety strips. So I decided to deviate from the instructions manual and actually paint those first so I can mask them later and paint black all around. There are other small parts that are not very detailed. For example, these rudder pedals. I decided to actually keep them on the sprue so I can paint them directly there. So I just did sand the top. The bottom is not going to be visible at all. So that one is fine. I can definitely clean it later on. Landing gear struts also required painting in silver, so I removed them from the sprue, thinking it's going to be better to clean them first. And this is where I introduced probably the worst mistake I did this entire project. Would you dare to guess what it was? You'll see it in a moment. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, and there it was. There was the piece that was supposed to keep the strut secure in the wing. I thought it was plastic flash and I removed it. I managed to do without it, but it would be definitely much easier to have that piece there. Some parts were then painted silver. The aiming sight, wheel covers, landing struts, or rudder pedals. I also removed the propeller from the sprue and painted the middle section with silver. Seat backrest also needed some paint, and I have to admit that this one also required quite thicker mixture of paint. Well, that's a lesson learned for the next time, right? As I was getting ready to assemble everything and glue things together, I noticed I will need to paint inside of the wheelbase, and I marked them with a pencil so I know the area I should paint them in, and so I don't have to paint the whole area or whole surface of the wing from inside. And here is the next thing, before we put everything together, I had my first rodeo with water slide decals. I definitely understand why people are using photo etch or even 3D printed parts for seatbelts, because, well, these decaled ones, they just left too much to desire. But hey, I wanted to try them, so that's how it looks like in the end. I think I did a pretty decent job for first time, right? I also used the provided water slide decal for instrument panel, as you can see. Here I am again attempting to put it on, which I'm failing at miserably, and even then, after I manage, it just doesn't look that good. It does not conform to the surface of the 3D plastic below it, and I think I should have probably pressed harder or maybe used some solutions. Perhaps I should have cut it up together, but that is something I'm going to try on the next model. For now, this will do for the first attempt. I was pretty much happy with how it turned out, though it looked a little bit toy-like in the end. It did not look realistic at all. There were some other interior areas that required a black paint, for example, again, inside of the side, but I used that opportunity to paint pretty much everything else I needed to paint black. You'll see later on I'm painting wheels too, but also trying to give the interior sides a little bit more detail. I also painted the propeller black, of course, because that's the color that it needed it to be. Before that, those yellow tips I painted beforehand, I masked them with the masking tape to make sure that we have a really nice edge between the black and yellow. Once everything got painted, it was time to start gluing things together, starting with this air intake filter that went into the bottom side of the wing. Then I started to assemble cockpit, which came in two pieces. First, the instrument desk, and a second, the one on the screen right now, the backrest and the seat itself. As I'm new to the hobby, I'm actually using a couple of different solutions or to glue things together. First of them is Mr. Hobby's Cement S, which you'll see me apply in a moment. It has this little brush that makes it a little bit easier to touch those details, and actually melts the two plastics together. The same principle is used in the other glue that I'm using, or cement, and that's a Revell Spitfire Professional, but it has that long needle-like nozzle that actually can get the glue into hard to reach places, so I do use these two interchangeably pretty much throughout this whole build. When I was assembling the front part of the cockpit with the instrument panel, I actually noticed that the yoke is quite large. It obstructs the instrument panel a bit, and when looking at the reference photos, I decided that I definitely need to make it smaller. So here you'll see me cutting it to pieces, and now I'm much more happy with how big the yoke actually is. As the glue was drying, the next thing I decided to do was to paint exhaust pipes that are going to sit on the side of Spitfire's nose. They are not as detailed as I would have hoped for, but hey, that's okay. We'll see how they look like once they are painted and glued to the fuselage. And finally, it was time to put everything together. I started with gluing in the seats. You can see on the panel on the side, I did try to add some color with the email colors I had. Unfortunately, that didn't work out as well as I had hoped. I probably should have used some panel liners or maybe even different kit that have more details. But that's, again, a learning for the next time. I also glued in the instrument panel with rudder pedals and the yoke, and before long I pressed the two halves of the fuselage together and sealed it with the cement. Unfortunately, they did not fit as much as I'd like to, and there was a noticeable difference in height, about 1 millimeter between the two sides at the bottom, which you can just see me sanding down. This wasn't an issue at the top mostly. There was still a bit of seam that I had to sand down, but the bottom was, the plastic was literally half a millimeter or even a millimeter thicker at the bottom. I used Revell putty that I also bought to try to make that gap disappear, applying quite a liberal amount of the almost clear putty. As you can see, it's hardly visible on the screen, and then sanding it down so there is no seam. Once painted, this actually is going to look quite decent. I'm actually not sure why I added elevators before adding wings, but hey, here I am test fitting them and then they're going to get glued together. I also made sure that they are nice and level. At the next stage, I don't know whether that was my mistake or the issue with the kit. I would assume it was a combination of both, but the wings just wouldn't fit on the fuselage. The shapes of the wings, or the sides, and the sides in the fuselage, they were just different. I checked hundreds of times if I have a correct orientation, but it just wasn't the case. I actually had to file down those wings a little bit to be even able to press it on. Well, luckily I had the putty that I purchased, so I could actually hide those ugly, disastrous seams later on. Before painting the belly of the beast, I decided to mask the whole top half off, just to make sure that I have that really nice seam between the belly and the top camo itself. I also used much thicker color to make sure that I don't require as many coatings, so it doesn't run too much as it did with the interior. And I think it was a much better job. It was much easier to apply it to the large area that is the underside of the plane. One thing that bugged me throughout the whole painting process is I couldn't find a technique to pretty much avoid those brush strokes being visible. And maybe it was the ratio of the thinner and the color, maybe it was the brush itself, but hey, you know, for the first build I don't think it's bad, and next time when I actually use airbrush, I think the result is going to be much nicer, much more even. And of course, with airbrush you won't see those brush strokes. Once I applied 2 coats of paint on the belly of the aircraft, I removed those masks and reapplied them, well, I reapplied different masks from the bottom to again ensure we get a gradient, and then I started to work on the top camo. Now here was the dilemma. If the camo has 2 colors, but which one you start first, or are you doing them separately? That's the question I haven't figured out yet. But what I did, and I think this was quite okay, even though it ended up in pretty much thicker coats with a green color, I decided to put the gray down first and only apply green on top. I did pretty much freehand the top camo, starting with, again, a very thin layer of green just to make sure I don't make any mistakes, and boy, I did quite a few of them, but I was able to fix them because of that thin paint. I did freehand it based on the cover image of the box art as well as the side views that came in the instructions manual. So here you see me guessing like, oh yeah, here's where the line should go. And well, it doesn't look like much, but I promise you it is going to get, again, quite decent. I wouldn't say good, I'd say decent, but that's the main theme of this kit, isn't it? It's just trying of what can be done. And now we are coming to that happy little accident I was alluding to before. If you remember, I painted the canopy sides with the interior green, and that is exactly what instructions say. But when I was test fitting everything together, I realized it has to be this exterior green to match. The thing is, those canopies, they usually were different color on the inside than they were on the outside. So by actually painting it with the interior green first and then applying another layer of exterior green, and by the way, apologies for my camera work here, it should have been a bit centered, but it was the only usable footage of this section. Well, by having the exterior green on top of the interior green, I managed to achieve exactly what I wouldn't even think of achieving, and that is to have two different colors, one from inside and two from outside. So accidents, you know, there are no mistakes, just happy little accidents. And before applying decals and doing finishing touches, I just couldn't spare you the most satisfying part of pretty much anything I've done. on this build was removing the tape. There was something that I really enjoyed on this build, as well on the next one that I'm going to have on this channel. Removing of the masking tape, that's just mwah, chef's kiss. And while there are some issues here and there, as you can see, the elevator had a little bit of gray bleeding in there, it's so satisfying and so good, and I'm so glad that it worked out the way it did. Now zoomed in, you actually see those brush strokes, but you don't really see them when you're looking at a scale model from, I don't know what is the appropriate viewing distance, I would say about 1 meter. You don't see those brush strokes, and all you see is like, wow, you know, there's no gradient, there's just one line between the belly and the top camo, and that's just brilliant. Now there's another mistake in the instructions manual, and that is this tiny blue piece. I think it's some sort of air intake. Well, it is painted with the color that instructions tell you to paint it, and when looking at reference photos, it was obviously the same color as the belly gray. So I don't have a footage of it, but I am going to repaint it. But first, it was time to apply decals, and in my opinion, decals are something that makes or breaks the model. It either tells you like, hey, this is a scaled down version of the proper plane, or it is just a toy that was built by someone who has no clue what they're doing, and that was me in this case. I had literally no clue. Like I said, I only applied a couple of decals before, and that was when I was building the interior. And here you'll see me, for example, here I could have probably painted this strip, but that's not something they came up of my mind. When I saw the instructions, you have to apply decals, I decided to apply decals because it was part of the process. If I would be building this one next time, I would definitely paint it, but in the end I don't think I did this really bad job, and everything was for the sake of learning anyways. Up until now, I did not understand why those British markings have those circles separately on a decal sheet. If you know, let me know. I know, for example, with Nazi aircraft swastikas, they are a bit separated because obviously those are banned in some countries, but I don't know why the middle circle on this sticker is missing, and there are a couple ones that I actually had to put together from different stickers too. It wasn't the hardest thing, but it was something that stood out. As for these long pieces, well, those were a pain to add, and make sure that they are leveled. If you have any tips or tricks on doing so, please let me know in the comments below. I would really love to know. Once I applied majority of decals, it was time to glue outstanding parts together, like the propeller to the cone, but also assembling the landing gear. And talking about landing wheels, oh boy, you remember the part where I cut the unnecessary flash from it, or at least I thought that was the flash? Well, that came to bite me now. Here you already see it sort of assembled, because I just could not afford to film and try to keep it in place at the same time. I wasn't physically able to, because I just couldn't. This is about 1 day in. It is a process that sort of questioned my sanity, and in the end I managed with an awful amount of putty. As you can see, I'm applying some more to make sure that it is strong enough to be able to sit on its own weight, and in the end it works. But oh my, don't do this mistake. With everything assembled, I actually applied semi-gloss varnish. I don't have a footage of that, but it is something that has been applied to sort of tie everything together. And I started to apply a little bit of weathering, or at least try to apply a bit of weathering. Unfortunately, I did not get any panel liners or anything like that. Not that it would even help with this kit, because there are no recessed panels, everything is sort of embossed. Now I did have some acrylic paints on the side, cheap ones, very old ones that I haven't used at all. And I sort of tried to work with that, see what I can do. I overdid it a little bit, the sort of smoke marks coming from the barrels, they're a bit more pronounced than what I would have hoped them to be. Next time I would probably use airbrush for those, or something different, but it was fun. The color of those exhaust pipes just looked too off. It was just too pristine, and they didn't look like exhaust at all. It looked like something wooden. So I decided to grime them up a bit, also add some sort of spillage or leaks, and I think I managed to do quite a good job there. Now there's a fuel tank lid at the top, which is just solved by a simple sticker. I think I overdid it there a bit in the end. This shouldn't have been so dirty, because I pretty much covered the whole sticker, but I think it is better than just having it a sticker itself. And finally, I also decided to pretty much add small scratches with the silver that I've been using, make those panels at least a bit visible under the thick layer of the color that I have applied, and I think that actually did a good job. Decent one. Again, not great, not terrible. Looks much better than if I kept it vanilla. Before adding a canopy, I actually added this line, which was made from melted sprue, a technique that I was always curious about and that ended up being so much easier than what I thought it is going to be. I probably should have painted it different color as well, because as you can see, even though, apologies for the blur, now it got a little bit better, but you can see it's on the whitish side. I just couldn't be bothered with painting in black or anything. For the next model, I'm probably going to do that. I also wasn't sure where the smaller piece is supposed to go. I don't think it's supposed to go in that hole. That one's going to get covered with a clear piece later on. But again, it made sense that it is probably going to go somewhere there. I still don't understand how well the canopy actually turned out. I thought it was going to be a disaster, and I did not trust my masking at all. But hey, it was decent. I actually attached it with PVA glue, so none of those cements, because I heard that it can get, as the plastic melts, it actually gets foggy, and I just wanted to keep it clear. So here you see me struggling with holding it in place because the PVA glue actually dries a little bit longer than the cement or a super glue, which I probably should use the next time. And here everything is already together. Well, not really. I'm actually adding one more small detail, that detail being the rear view mirror, which was super tiny, and again, I did not want to use the cement, which would probably make it very quick to dry. I used the PVA glue, so I had to hold it in place for some time, and I actually went back and redone this a couple of times before I was satisfied with the result. Now with canopy on, you'll also see me adding that one last clear piece where the antenna is. This one I lost the carpet monster a couple of times. It actually flew away, but luckily I found it every single time, and even though I was sort of thinking that it's gone forever, I managed to find it. I managed to add it. I managed to glue it in with a PVA glue and secure everything. So I do have 100% of all the 37 or how many pieces this kit had. They're all Well, actually they are not all on yet. There's one last small piece that is this, what I believe is pitot tube, but I'm really not certain. I added it as a last thing because I did not want it to get it in my way as I was handling the model. And that was the last thing I did, and now I'm going to show you some pictures of the finished build. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. It was definitely fun to build something like this, and I can't wait to build another scale model on this channel.